I tried to change you, fix you, save you. There was a time when I truly believed love meant carrying someone through every storm, even when they refused to move. I thought love meant staying awake while someone else slept peacefully through chaos. I believed love meant sacrificing pieces of myself just to make sure you never had to feel pain. And for the longest time, I convinced myself that what I was doing for you was love, but now, after everything, I finally understand something I should have understood much earlier. I was trying to change you, I was trying to fix you, I was trying to save you, and somewhere in the middle of all of that, I forgot to love you for who you actually were. I kept looking at your wounds and seeing projects instead of pain. I kept looking at your struggles and thinking if I just loved you harder, if I just gave more, stayed longer, forgave deeper, sacrificed enough, then somehow everything would finally change. I thought if I said the right words, your fears would disappear. I thought if I loved deeply enough, your walls would collapse. I thought if I stayed through every storm, eventually you would stop running. I thought patience alone could heal what was broken. I thought loyalty could erase years of hurt. I thought my love could rescue you from yourself, but life has a painful way of teaching lessons we never wanted to learn. Because no matter how much someone loves you, they cannot heal the parts of you that you refuse to face. No matter how loyal someone is, they cannot carry burdens that were never theirs to hold. And no matter how much someone gives, eventually exhaustion finds its way into even the purest heart. I see that now. There were moments I looked at you and saw your potential instead of your reality. I saw the version of you that could exist if only you believed in yourself. I saw kindness hidden beneath anger. I saw softness behind distance. I saw love buried underneath fear, and maybe that was my mistake. I loved who you could become so much that sometimes I struggled to accept who you were right in front of me. I kept waiting for a version of you that wasn't ready to exist. I kept hoping for tomorrow while bleeding through today. I kept believing healing would come if I just waited long enough. But love should not feel like standing in a burning house while hoping the fire eventually gets tired. Love should not feel like constantly abandoning yourself to prove your loyalty. Love should not require becoming smaller so someone else can stay comfortable. And still, I tried. God knows I tried. I tried to understand your silence. I tried to excuse your distance. I tried to forgive the moments you hurt me because I knew pain had hurt you first. I defended you when people told me to walk away. I made excuses for things that broke my heart. I convinced myself your inconsistency was confusion. I convinced myself your coldness was fear. I convinced myself your absence was temporary. I told myself healing takes time. I told myself love requires patience. I told myself people change. And maybe they do. But change only happens when someone chooses it. You cannot force growth into someone who feels safer staying broken. You cannot drag healing into someone determined to protect their wounds. You cannot rescue someone who mistakes help for pressure. That lesson nearly destroyed me to learn, because I wanted so badly to believe that if I just loved harder, things would finally shift. I kept pouring from an empty cup. I kept giving what I no longer had. I kept showing up even when I felt invisible. I kept fighting for us while secretly wondering if I was fighting alone. And maybe the hardest truth isn't that you hurt me. Maybe the hardest truth is realizing how much I hurt myself trying to save someone who never asked to be saved. That realization changes a person. It changes the way you see love. It changes the way you see yourself, because eventually you start asking painful questions. Why was I willing to settle for crumbs? Why did I confuse struggle with depth? Why did I think suffering proved loyalty? Why did I keep choosing pain and calling it devotion? Why was I trying so hard to earn what should have been freely given? Those questions haunted me. For nights, for months, for seasons of my life I will never get back. I replayed conversations. I replayed arguments. I replayed moments where I should have spoken up but stayed silent. Moments where I abandoned my needs just to avoid conflict. Moments where I ignored my intuition because I didn't want the truth. Because truth can be brutal. Truth forces you to see things clearly. Truth reminds you that sometimes people are not ready for the kind of love you offer. Truth reminds you that no amount of love can replace accountability. Truth reminds you that effort cannot survive one-sided forever. And truth reminded me of something painful. I was losing myself, little by little, quietly, slowly. I stopped recognizing who I was. I became anxious, overthinking everything, wondering if I said too much, wondering if I expected too much, wondering if asking for consistency made me difficult, wondering if wanting reassurance made me needy, wondering if my heart simply loved too deeply. But loving deeply was never my flaw. Loving someone was never the problem. The problem was forgetting to love myself while loving someone else. The problem was believing I had to save someone to deserve love. The problem was making someone else my responsibility, because people are not projects. Hearts are not construction sites, and healing cannot be forced. I understand now that loving someone does not mean sacrificing yourself completely. Loving someone does not mean tolerating endless confusion. Loving someone does not mean shrinking your needs. Love should feel safe. Love should feel mutual. Love should feel honest. Love should feel like peace, not constant survival. And maybe you were fighting battles I could never fully understand. Maybe life hurt you in ways I could never imagine. Maybe trust felt dangerous to you. Maybe vulnerability terrified you. Maybe love scared you because every time you trusted someone before, they left. I understand that. I really do. But understanding someone's pain does not mean accepting pain in return. Compassion should never cost your self-respect. Empathy should never require self-abandonment. Love should never become self-destruction. I know now that trying to fix people often comes from our own wounds. Maybe I wanted to save you because I wished someone had saved me once. Maybe I wanted to heal your pain because I understood loneliness too well. Maybe I wanted to rescue you because I knew what brokenness felt like, and maybe loving you forced me to finally confront my own unfinished healing, because the truth is, I wasn't just trying to save you, I was trying to save the parts of myself I still didn't know how to heal. And that realization changed everything. Suddenly, I stopped seeing love as sacrifice. I stopped romanticizing struggle. I stopped believing pain equals passion. I stopped chasing people who only showed up halfway. I stopped begging for consistency. I stopped trying to prove my worth. Because love should never require convincing. The right connection doesn't leave you questioning your value every night. The right person doesn't make you feel hard to love. The right love doesn't feel like emotional survival. And maybe one day you'll grow. Maybe one day you'll heal. Maybe one day you'll understand everything I tried to give you. Maybe one day life will teach you the lessons I couldn't. Maybe one day you'll look back and finally understand why I loved so hard. But that journey is yours, not mine. I can no longer carry what belongs to someone else. I can no longer exhaust myself trying to heal wounds I didn't create. I can no longer save people while drowning myself. Because finally, after everything, I choose me, not out of anger, not out of bitterness, not out of revenge, but out of survival. Out of healing, out of self-respect, I choose peace, I choose honesty, I choose boundaries, I choose the kind of love that feels safe instead of confusing, and maybe that means walking away, maybe that means grieving what could have been, maybe that means accepting the painful reality that sometimes love alone is not enough. Because sometimes two people love each other but still cannot meet where healing is required. Sometimes timing matters. Sometimes wounds matter. Sometimes readiness matters. And sometimes love simply cannot survive where accountability does not exist. That truth hurts. But denial hurts longer. So I release what I tried to control. I release the need to rescue. I release the need to fix. I release the responsibility I placed on myself. I release the version of us I held onto for too long, and for the first time in a long time, I breathe. Not because healing is easy, but because healing finally feels honest. I loved you. Maybe I always will in some quiet corner of my heart. But love no longer means losing myself. Love no longer means carrying impossible weight. Love no longer means bleeding just to prove loyalty. I gave everything I could. I stayed longer than most people would. I tried harder than I probably should have. And even if things didn't turn out the way I hoped, I know something important now. I was never too much. I simply gave too much to someone who couldn't hold it, and there is a difference. So this is not goodbye with anger, this is goodbye with understanding.